Hello? One, two. Hello. Okay, I've established it's all working, so yeah, sorry I'm a minute late. Yeah, here we are, Tidal Club, week 5. Greetings to tidal cyclists around the world. I haven't got much of a plan really. I just thought this could be a nice questions and answers session. So if you've got any questions, that would be great. Otherwise, I could talk about things. We've got 11 people locked in. Hello. I'm streaming from my spare room in Sheffield. You might notice actually when I've been doing these videos, everything moves quite a lot. And that's because I'm actually on the bed in my spare room. I've got like an old coffee table where my computer is and my mixer. And it's actually on the mattress. So whenever anything moves, everything else moves. So sorry if that makes you feel ill. I'm assuming that you can hear me all right. So if any questions pop into your head, anything really simple or really complicated to confuse me with, then go ahead. Otherwise, I'll just talk about something random. I mean, what? Here we go. Simon. It could be that you've got like a minute or two's delay, so it might seem I'm ignoring you for a while. Okay. So Kay Blamo has sneaked in ahead of Simon with a question. So I am going to answer that one first. Any more info about the way of seeing what syntax functions expect? And gives the example of tchoose, wchoose. Let's pick a couple. So wchoose and jux maybe. So these are quite well used functions. wchoose is a bit less well used, but is very useful. And maybe we'll just pick a really simple one like rev as well. So rev is a function that reverses every cycle. So if we had bass drum, snare, can you see my cursor? Yeah, okay. Bass drum, snare, there, and that just reverses every. So you can see here, it takes with this. It's called a type signature. So this is kind of its shape, what it expects and what it gives back. And it takes a pattern of type A and returns a new pattern also of type A. So this A is here and this A is here. It can be anything at all. But if this is integers, like whole numbers, then it will give you back something of exactly the same type. So this is like the first input, there's only one, and then the last one in the list is always an output. We can also look at fast. So you find out the type of something with colon, then T, and that's the type signature of fast. So fast has got, we can see from this, there's three things. The last thing is the output. And so these other two things are the inputs. And so it takes a pattern, not of type A this time, it has to be of a certain type, which is of type time. So it takes a time value, which is the amount of the factor which you speed up time by. And the second parameter is the pattern which you're speeding up. And then the third thing is the output. So there you go. And that means that Rev is taking this as an input and giving a pattern as output. So its input is on the right, and it will output a pattern which is passed to D1. But if we put fast here and the pattern of time, let's say that kind of pattern, then we have the full caboodle. So yeah, it's a bit strange how it kind of has these arrows both in between the inputs and in between and at the end as well. There is a reason for that, and it's quite a confusing one. So if you're used to other programming languages, functions and procedures always have a certain number of inputs, but with Tidal, and actually it's Haskell, functions only ever have one input. They only have one input and one output. They never have no outputs. There's always an output and one input. So it's like there's two inputs here, but really there's only one. So what happens is that fast gets given its one input, which is time, and it returns this, which is a function from patterns to patterns. So that means if we take fast and give it one input, which is 2 in this case, so it's a pattern of numbers, even though it looks like a plain number. Tidal actually turns it into a pattern of numbers for you. We could do the same just to save confusion as we did here. So I've only given fast one input, and so it's given me its output, which is a function from patterns to patterns. And that's interesting because that's the same type as Rev. So Rev has the same type as fast 2-3. So that is, when you first start getting your head around this, it's pretty mind-blowing. You're used to using these functions, and then you find out every function only has one input. So what's happening is that fast gets its input, returns a function from patterns to events, and then if you actually give it a pattern, let me think, just like 1, 2, 3, then it becomes just a pattern. So that's actually the full pattern. It'll be probably a pattern of numbers, but it's a bit ambiguous, so it hasn't really managed to work it out for you. I don't know if that makes any sense, but it's something to bear in mind, because that's why when we look at something like every, the this is more complicated. The actual function is quite easy to use because it just kind of reads fairly naturally. You can say every second repetition reverse this pattern. Yeah. But when we look at the type, we find out that 2 is a pattern of integers, so we could actually make that a pattern if we wanted. And then this one is a function that takes patterns as inputs and patterns as outputs. That's what the rev is doing. And then it takes its sound. Well, it's a control pattern actually, and it'll return a control pattern of the same type. So this is the pattern that this one here, and then this is the thing it finally returns and passes to D1. So that's why you can just shove fast2 in there, because fast2 is returning a function that manipulates patterns. This one. And so every has something to work on to mess around with sound every second repetition. Okay, so I've gone straight in with quite a complicated answer to fairly easy, straightforward questions. So sorry about that. W-choose, this is a bit different. It has a kind of data structure as input. It still returns a pattern, but it wants a list, which is what the square brackets are, of something called tuples, which is a bit like lists, with values, which is what you end up inside the pattern, and doubles, which is the floating point number that represents how likely something is going to happen. Can't really say too much more than that, I suppose. So W-choose, there's the list coming in. And then here comes the tuple, which is just like, in this case, it's a pair of values, one being the pattern, the value actually, so I can't put a pattern here. I can only put a value. And this being the likelihood of it being chosen. Yeah, I've got parse error. Put that the wrong side. So it's random, which means it's a continuous stream now of kick drums and snares. So I still need to give it some structure. So I'll pick 4 of those per cycle. So is that any clearer? Hope so. What I might do oh no, it'll be alright. I was thinking about putting your chat in the stream, but you can see it to the side of it anyway, so that's fine. Yeah, I hope, okay, hope that's helpful. Have a think about that, see if there's more questions to come. So there are some shortcuts for note values, quavers, eighth notes, E for an eighth or something. Okay, so Simon wants to know about those. Okay. Oh. I've got this weird thing that Atom crashes whenever I try and open anything. I need to work out why that is. Never mind. I'll see if I can open the file I was trying to anyway. So sound Tidal pass. Okay. Yeah, so this is something quite new actually. So it's always been a bit awkward working with durations. So if I have this. I should think of some nicer rhythms to do, maybe. So the question is about durations. I'm trying to think of something I can do which isn't something brand new. Yeah, okay. So, yeah. So there are ways of specifying durations as let's have a look. Q. Yeah. So this is actually the mini notation parser code. And you can see that where it sees W for whole, it returns 1. H for half, it returns 0.5. Q for quarter, 0.25. E is 0.125, so on. S for 16th, then T for third, and F for a fifth. So these are quite useful. So the first thing you can do is have sound. I could say, actually I'll use something with, if I do super saw, it's quite a funny old synthesizer though. You have to kind of tame it a bit. Oh, sorry. Sorry, that was a typo. I hope no one's got headphones on really loud. I'm really sorry about that. I had a really high LPQ value and that was creating a really horrible high-pitched sound. Is everyone okay? Anyway, sorry about that. So, so you can say make this 0.5 things long and that one thing. So with this @ symbol, it's just saying make this step relative to the others this size. So this is a half step now, and that's just a default. So that'll be, this one's now twice as long as this. And with these shorthands, instead of doing 0.5, which can get quite, if you wanted to do a 16th, then you could do this. Sounds quite triumphant. And if you want to do 3/16, that makes sense. Maybe you can do 3s. This is useful not just for note lengths. For example, if I had a delay, that's just the amount of delay. I'm going to shift back to doing some drums. So if I put delay T of Q, that should now be 0.25. And if I do lock, that's relative to the cycle length. So now the delay is a quarter of a cycle. So if I put 16th, I can increase the amount of feedback the delay gets. Or third. This is, Yes, that's fun to do with delays. Another thing it's fun to do with is with, let's think, I can shift this in time, like this, and then pattern that, so have naught, shift it by a quarter, then a third, see what it does. Kind of sounds random already, but I'm only doing a little bit of shifting. Is that helpful, Simon? Yeah. So that's something quite new anyway. If there's some letters, I mean, the problem is you can't do eighth because actually you can do eighth, but if you're, there's a conflict between note aliases and these durations in certain circumstances. Okay. Okay, what is the column for? Daniela has answered that well. So, are there any tidal functions that don't give a type output? Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what the question is. I guess this is Bernard or Bernard, I'm not sure. Are there any tidal functions that don't give a type and output? All functions in Haskell have an output because so Haskell, which Tidal is implemented in, is a pure functional programming language, which means that all functions have to have an output because they don't do anything apart from return something. Although that thing that it returns might be some changed behavior or some action. But yeah, there'll always be an output. So, and like a value is just like a function that doesn't have any inputs in a way. So I suppose you get functions that aren't inputs, which are then just values. I don't know. I'm getting a bit confused now. Okay, so Mistress Martin, Vark was random number. Okay, we have some pseudocode or something here. So they want to. Var is random number. Ratio has a 0 denominator. Binary n. Huh. Binary n. Yeah, I'm not sure what's going on with this. I can't even remember what binary n is. I think it's something like creates a binary number with a given number of bits or something. Yeah. They want to. Okay. Huh. Yeah. I'm not sure exactly what this is trying to do. I think it's trying to randomly create a binary pattern. Is that right? 16. But I don't know why it's not working really. So if I just put 1 here, I guess this would just be, yeah. So binary n is sort of creating a binary pattern from a whole decimal number. And they're trying to put in a random number here. But when they try and do that, it doesn't work. Ratio has 0 denominator. Maybe if we... Yeah, that's a weird one. I don't know why that's not working. I can't see any reason why it wouldn't. I'll have to look at that later. Because you can put a... Yeah. Why can't you put random numbers there? I mean, I can see why naught might... No, naught should work as well. Error in pattern. Ratio has 0 denominator. Yeah, don't understand that. That's really weird. Because that isn't dividing anything as far as I know. That seems weird. I don't know why that's not working. Thanks for pointing that out. I'll have to try and work that out. So Juan is asking about the sounds for D bass. Yeah, this is a mistake. So if you go to the video with it in, the forum post with the last video in, underneath someone else pointed out the D bass wasn't available. And I uploaded a zip with them in, and I also updated the samples extra file so that if you just downloaded the new samples extra file, you'd find it in there as well. Sorry about that. Right. Oh yes, okay. Someone's already answered that. I should read a bit further ahead. Okay. Serial experiments. It's like the Dilbert TV show with a voice-activated shower temperature. I think I need to watch more Dilbert TV shows. Could there be a way to use MIDI triggers in Tidal, even if it's a long-term thing to consider? Sometimes I make some sounds in Tidal that I wish I could use as keyboards. Yes. Yeah, I don't have a keyboard here. I do have a MIDI device that I use sometimes when I'm playing live. So, it is possible to control Tidal with MIDI to some extent. Let me think. So what I use it for is just changing parameters. So especially when I'm playing with my friend Sam, he does a lot of drum machine stuff, and it's really nice to for him to just be able to look at my screen, what patterns I'm running, or maybe we're sharing a screen, and just take some bass off one of the patterns, so there's room for his kick drum, all that kind of thing. So use it for kind of with the DJF effect for sort of shaping. And so I have it so I've got 8 faders and they control the filtering on 8 different patterns from D1 to D8. And there's also, I've also got it set up so you can change delays and things like that. But having it so you can press keys and here and just play patterns that way. It is possible. It's not something I've done. I think Eris has. Don't know if she's in the Yeah, I haven't seen her. So I think it was Eris anyway. But yeah, it's possible. And we'll cover that next week, I think. Yeah. How to do some MIDI stuff. I think Lucy has in mind to do something about controlling synths rather than playing Tidal with controllers, but I can set up something anyway, an example. Okay. So Kindome has me doing MIDI input investigations. Yeah, we should get him to do a video as well. Benjamin, I was trying to use an every with set CPS. I ran into problems. I tried variations, but it didn't work. Is it not possible with CPS? Yeah, I reckon so. I'm a bit nervous because I'm using. Yeah, I need to make. I'll work out what's going on with this and post in the forum for this live stream once I have. It's annoying me, but I don't want to waste your time watching me look at code. So why is that not working? Okay. So every 7 set CPS. So we can look at the type of set CPS. It's not that useful, but you can see it has an input of a pattern of numbers, doubles, which is kind of floating point numbers. And the output is of type IO, which means that it doesn't actually give you a pattern at all. It just does some IO, which stands for input output. But so what this does is just sends a single CPS instruction. You can't pattern it in that way, but what you can do is do CPS 3 maybe, or it'll be fast, let's say 7. And then you can do things like pattern it like this. And you could do things like every 2 times 2. Let's try that. So set CPS is just the thing for, instead of you just run it as a command really. Say set CPS 0.8. As I say, I have been rewriting all the tempo stuff, so yeah, it might make some funny noises if we're not careful. It's a bit buggy, but it seems to be working at the moment. That's good. So CPS is a control for turning a function for turning numbers into control messages that ostensibly get set to SuperCollider. In this case, it's actually controlling something Tidal does on the way, but that's not important. So you can pattern CPS that way. Right. But it does have to be on a pattern that gets sent to D1 or D2 or something like that. Don't give a type A output. Are there other output types that Tidal gives? Right. So when I say type A means can stand for any type. There are some functions which are more specific, like for example, hurry. So hurry will only work on control patterns, which are patterns of controls. So that means hurry will only work on something like sound or CPS or vowel. So it'll work here. But it won't work on this pattern here because this hasn't been turned into a control pattern yet. So if I put hurry here, it'll complain, oh no, it's expected a pattern of strings, but it's got a control pattern. It's just got very confused. So I could put, but if we look at, say, fast, that will work on any type of pattern. So if we change this to fast, it will work. It's very confused now because it's got its CPS changing all the time. But hey. So is it possible to pattern the hash of slices input to slice splice? I feel like I've tried it. It didn't work like I'd expect. It was fun to do it manually though. Okay. Number of slices input to slice or splice. So here, yeah, okay, then they don't mean the hash. This hash they mean number. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. So if I had, I'm going to use Beverly Craven splice 8. Can you pattern the first thing? No, you can't. It's true. Seems you can with slice, but not with splice. That's weird. So it seems if I put a pattern here, that won't work. If with splice, it will. Yeah, there's no reason for that. I'd call that a bug. So I'll add that to my to-do. So so make splice pattern. I think that might actually already be an issue open on GitHub for that. So this doesn't work. Yeah. Yeah, not so long ago, there were no inputs could be patterned in this way. It's in the last couple of years, it's been possible to do this at all. Tidal was quite a different language before that was possible. And there's still some bits where I haven't got around to making inputs patternable. Like you never used to be able to make fast pattern like this. You always have to do this, and then there'd be some nasty functions. Well, I don't know. I've got quite warm feelings about it really, like spread, where you'd have to do this kind of thing to cycle between values. But now you don't have to do that nonsense with spread, so yeah, no one uses spread anymore really. Actually, there probably are some places where it's useful, but obscure ones. So you can just do that. So basically, I haven't got around to making that patternable. There are ways, so I could use this monadic syntax to do this. Put that here. Yeah, we'll fix that really soon in the next version of Tidal, I promise. Super quick to fix. Okay, the questions are still coming. Yeah, someone's already answered the question that I answered too late, obviously. Okay. But then Benjamin follows up saying, I was running into issues using dollar and hash. Is there a way to think about how I need to structure those? So, yeah, this is something which takes a lot of practice, and it's something I have gone through in at least one of the videos. It's something that just comes out of practice after a while, I think. So this hash is doing quite a lot. It is taking two control patterns, one that controls the vowels and one that controls the sounds that are made, that are used. So in this case, it's just taking 8 bass drum or kick drum sounds and mix them up with these 3 vowels. And there's a video trying to explain how they match up and things. I've still got to write some reference material about this, I know, but so this is what is combining to control patterns together. The dollar is doing something quite different. They both kind of look as if they're gluing things together, but the hash is gluing together 2 control patterns, whereas the dollar is gluing together a function, which is D1, with its input, which is this whole pattern. If it wasn't there, then D1 would be looking for its input, and it would find this sound, and it would get confused because sound on its own isn't a pattern. It needs inputs itself. So one thing you can do is use parenthesis. So this is saying work all this out. So give this, this is all worked out first before passing it to D1. And dollar just does the same. So all dollar does as a kind of little operator is it takes what's on its right and gives it to the function on its left. And it always does what it does last, as late as possible. So that means that this will get worked out first. So this is just for controlling the order in which things are worked out. You can use parenthesis, but then you have to match up opening and closing, and it can get a bit unwieldy when you've got quite a complicated pattern. So the easiest thing often is just to use dollar. It only works for the last input for a function. Which is, well, D1's only got 1 anyway, so I'd have to put it here for rev. So on. So here I had to use a parenthesis because every 2 wants a function, a transformation to apply to this every second cycle. And if I'd have just put fast 2, then it would look, and the first thing it would see was fast on its own. That's not a complete transformation. It needs to know how fast to make it. So you have to give fast its 2 before it's passed to every. And then also the same with the pattern that needs to be worked out before it's passed to every as well. So that's why that's there. And you can't do that because it only works for the last input for the function. And every has 3 inputs. The how often something is applied, the function that's applied, which is fast2 here, and the pattern. So I went through that quite fast. It'll be a refresher for some people. But yeah, if you go back to I think it's the video about dollar. It's mentioned in the title of it anyway. Hopefully it's a bit easier to navigate the forum now because I've put everything into weeks. So when you go to the Tidal Club section at the top, there's a drop down where you should be able to select the week and see what the theme of each week was. Okay. But yeah, have a look and ask questions in the forum if there's anything still unclear. Okay, 2 unrelated questions from Art Heist. I'm going to sneak and see if anyone else has answered them first. I don't think I have. Right. Are there any ways to sync Tidal from an external source, most likely MIDI sync? So Tidal has in general been not had MIDI clock or anything input into it. It's not something I've got around to doing, but it does have some kind of link, Ableton link support. So if you look in the tidalcycles.org and search for link, that might be able to help you. So that's the protocol that Ableton made, but it's open source and lots of other software uses it as well, including Tidal via something called Carabiner. There's some instructions there. Once it's running, it can be pretty solid. So yeah. There are also ways to get Tidal to send MIDI clock out. But then, yeah, you can't be a slave to MIDI clock unless you do it via link. Okay. Tidal complaining about indentation, but did not quite understand what it wanted exactly. Yeah. Yeah, this came up in a previous live stream. And I said I would look into the actual rules, but yeah, it is annoying that sometimes like this doesn't work, but other times it does. Yeah, there are indentation rules basically in Haskell. And it's something I've just learned to use without understanding exactly what it's doing. So yeah, maybe if you can share an example of what isn't working and we'll look at that. That might be a good way around. But it seems sometimes things work in some versions of Haskell that don't in others. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. Yeah, okay. I guess one answer is to put everything in brackets to make it clear. But yeah. So I haven't got a good answer for that, but it's something I'll look into for a future video maybe, is indentation rules, because that seems to trip people up. It's just not something I normally think about for some reason. Where's my to-do list? Yes, okay. Indentation rules. Okay. So run scale major 7. Not sure exactly what's going on here. Yes, this is pseudocode. So Rich SC wants to know if you can do stuff like this. So I suppose what this is probably trying to do is turn, let's start with the piano. Mandolin. And they want a random, I'm not sure if it's a random scale or a random number within a scale, so I'll do both. So that would be a way of generating a number between 0 and 6, and using that to pick notes from the major scale. I have to structure it in some way because it's coming from a random function which doesn't have any structure of its own. So I'll do that with a Euclidean binary pattern. And I'll just put we've been talking about confusing dollars and hashes, and I've just done it myself. So that's how to do a random number within a scale. To do a random scale, maybe you could do something like so now it's picking a random scale out of this list every cycle. Or you could use choose for this as well. It's the same really. Well, actually choose would pick one every note, I think. So that would sound a bit more random. And that would be once a cycle. So now both the scale that's used and the note is random in a different way. So hopefully that answers your question. Hang on. Okay. Look up. I've declared that function. I can't see where you've declared that function. I'm confused. Okay. Okay. I'll post an example of indentation problems on the forum. Thanks for that. I'm not sure what's going on there, but I think maybe I'm answering what is actually an answer to another question. I'm not sure what's going on. So it's a good example is things like open and close brackets need to be aligned. So if I had choose let's do sound segment 3. So there's rules about how these things are. Yeah, I can't seem to get anything that doesn't work though. Yeah, I can't seem to break Haskell at the moment. Yeah, certainly when you do things, like if you do let x equals 3 and every x rev sound boolean that has to be aligned. Yeah, so that has to line up with that. Yeah, if there's some indentation problem, it's normally if you just line things up in a fairly logical manner, then it starts working again. Okay, I think I might be at the end of the questions. Oh, I've got to play the jingle. How do I do that? Should have done that at the start. Okay. There. That was by Evan Hartzell. Yeah, I think as an aside, me and Lucy started joking about jingles in the first live stream, and yeah, Evan's gone and made one. So if anyone else wants to make a Tidal Club jingle, then I will use it in the next live stream. Okay. I remember reading or seeing there were stage limiter / compressor for live performance. Yes, there is a limiter, so it's already enabled. So this is there mainly to save ears. So if I turn the sound down on the stream and then try and make a sound that's as loud as possible, we can probably hear it working. So yeah, I'll go quiet for a moment. I just don't want to hurt your ears. So if I increase the gain. Yeah, actually that didn't go too loud, but there's a limiter when you go in hard. It will limit things, so if you're listening on headphones, it won't hurt your ears. That's the idea. I think you still should be a bit careful with playing with Tidal with headphones. Like earlier, I did that nasty thing with LPQ. I need to check that. Yeah, I'm surprised there isn't a limit on the upper highest number you can put there. So we might need to adjust that to make it a bit safer. So yeah, be careful of your ears. Don't end up like me. Right. But then if you're doing like some studio recording, you might want to turn that limiter off. And there isn't actually a really easy way of doing that, and it's on the list of things to do for SuperDirt. I think even Yulin might have implemented it, but I haven't got around to looking at the pull request or something. But if you go in, I think in the hacks folder in SuperDirt, I'll just have a quick look actually. Yeah, so if you if you go to Super Collider and do Open User Support Directory and go into Quark, SuperDirt, and then Hacks, you'll find in there a file called Adding a Compressor. and there it lets you. Yeah, I'm not sure if this is replacing the existing limiter or what. Actually, I think it is adding an extra one on top. But yeah, you can play with compressing a nice compressor there. There's also something for side chaining. Yeah, so if you look in filtering dirt output.scd, there's something in side chaining. So that's when you have one orbit feeding into the compressor of another, so that you have that ducking effect that you get in trance and things. It's always fun. Okay. Yeah, have a look around in that Axe folder, because there's loads of good stuff in there. And I'll be talking a bit more about SuperDirt in the next video later this week. I think I've got to the end of the questions, which is good because that's the hour. Thanks very much, everyone, for sticking around, keeping me company on this Monday evening in Sheffield. I hope you're doing all right where you are. I think if you're still around, I may as well do something. Yeah, I'll show you side chaining in the next video. Yeah, Mistress is getting excited about side chaining. Yeah, so yeah, so Lucy and I, we always had function of the month in the physical Tidal Club we used to have in Sheffield. So I'm going to think of a nice function. Yeah, it's something that I've used quite a lot in the videos. I'm not explaining what it does properly. So if we had something where it's quite clear what the sounds are, 1, 2, 3, 4. Start with that.
C D A B C D A B C D.
What it does, so here we've got the samples from that folder, which is someone saying A, B, C, D. So what it does is shift by a certain amount, in this case a quarter, so it'll be 1/4, a quarter of a cycle, every cycle. So the first time it will shift it and end up like this, and then it'll be like this, and then D, A, B, C, and then finally it'll get back to where it was. So it had 4 cycles before it gets back to where it was, which is what that 4 represents.
C A B C D B C D A C D A B D A B C A B C D B C D A C D A B D A B C A B C D B C D A C D C D A B C C A B C D A C C A C B C D A B C C A B C D A C A B A B A B C A B C.
It's a very quick way of, through very simple transformation really, of really messing things up. I like using this with longer samples, like if we do this thing too slow. Like it's gradually scanning along this break. There's also something called iter prime. This is just a single quote. Prime in Haskell it just basically means an alternative version of something, as far as I can tell. And so I've just got iter prime, which does the same but shifts in the opposite direction. So instead of doing this, it will do A, B, C, D, D, A, B, C, C, D, A, B. So this gives it quite a different quality actually, because you get all these doubling up. So A, B, C, D, and then it repeats the D and then the C at the end of the next one. So
B A A C C A B C D A C C A C B C D A C C A B C D A B C C D A B B C D A B C D D A B C C D A B B C D A.
Yeah, so it's shifting in the opposite direction, but because time's also continuing, it has quite a different effect, which is strange. Okay, so that was function of the month, iter. Right. Yeah. Again, I have this problem where it's a bit of an anticlimax because I can't see you and don't know what's going on, so okay, so have fun. I'm gonna sign off now. I'll play the jingle one more time and then stop the stream. So yeah, have a nice evening. Bye. Thanks for all the questions. See you soon.